Welcome to Overnight Finance's YouTube channel. I'm Eric from Selected Investments, and today we're going to be talking about USD Plus and how it works within a liquidity pool. Now, before we get into how it actually works inside of a liquidity pool, we need to know what a liquidity pool is. So with this image, we can understand that there is two ways to look at it. There's the way to look at it if you are a trader willing to buy or sell a specific cryptocurrency. And there's also another way of looking at this image if you are the liquidity provider and looking to generate some revenue that way. Now we're going to look into this step by step and specifically focus on the liquidity pool portion of this image. Now, if we take a look at this from a trader's perspective and we're going from right to left from that image, we are a trader and we are using a decentralized exchange in order to purchase or sell a specific cryptocurrency. Now, of course, there are some fees along the way, and this is basically because a decentralized exchange is offering a service to the trader, and that's why there is a small fee, and that's also how the decentralized exchange makes money. Some examples of decentralized exchanges are like PancakeSwap for the Binance Smart Chain. We have Trader Joe on Avalanche. We also have QuickSwap on Matic, and the list continues, but this is not the point of this video. Now, this is where the liquidity pool comes into play. You can think of this as a big vault which has 50% of both tokens that you are trying to swap, whether it is USDT or USDC. We can assume that this liquidity pool is going to be composed of 50% of USDC and 50% of USDT. Now, there are also people who decide to provide liquidity inside of a liquidity pool, and those people are called liquidity providers. Now, the incentive behind providing liquidity is that they are rewarded with a portion of the fees that are charged to the traders of that said transaction, and depending on the amount of liquidity they provide to the liquidity pool, they get a certain percentage of the fees that the decentralized exchange actually charges traders for trading. Now, to make this even more simple, here let's take an example of a very common liquidity pool. Here we have USDC, which is a stable coin, and we also have USDT, which is another stable coin. And let's say trader A wants to buy USDT and use their USDC. Now, if we take an example of how this works, let's say you have USDT inside of your wallet and you want to buy some USDC. Now, for this to work, there needs to be a liquidity pool with those said coins. And in this example, it would of course be 50% of USDC and 50% of USDT, which would make up this entire liquidity pool. Now remember, you are trying to buy USDC with your USDT, and the way this works is that you are actually going to be putting your USDT inside of this liquidity pool, and this liquidity pool is going to give you USDC with the same amount of USDT that you provided inside of that liquidity pool. So as you can understand, if you're buying USDC, well, the amount of USDC inside of that liquidity pool is going to decrease because you've now have it in your wallet, you've purchased it. But on the flip side, the amount of USDT inside of that liquidity pool is going to increase because you've used that USDT to buy USDC. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, how does USD Plus work inside of a liquidity pool? If I am holding USD Plus inside of my wallet, I am generating a rebase every single day and getting rewards for holding USD Plus. So if we take a quick look back at how USD Plus works, as we know, you take your USDC, you mint USD Plus on Overnight Finance's decentralized app, then they're going to take that USDC and invest it into different strategies depending on their smart contracts. those strategies are going to yield rewards and fees, which are all going to be converted into USDC, and then it is all converted back to USD plus. And last but not least, that USD plus that was generated by the USDC, by the strategies that it was invested in, is then distributed to people who hold USD plus in their wallet via a rebase mechanism. So if we go more into the details of how USD Plus works in a liquidity pool, if we take the example of USD Plus and Matic, because as we know, when we define a liquidity pool, you need 50% of both tokens. And in this case, we have 50% of Matic and we also have 50% of USD Plus. Now, what happens is that you are going to be a liquidity provider in this case, meaning that you are providing those assets to a liquidity pool on a decentralized exchange. Now, for doing so, you are actually receiving a liquidity pool token, which is your receipt for providing that liquidity inside of that liquidity pool. Now, step 4, you can actually use that receipt or that liquidity pool token and stake that into some different gauge pools, which we're going to look at in a second. Now, as we said multiple times, USD Plus inside of your liquidity pool is still going to be getting that daily rebase depending on the amount of money that's generated from these strategies. So here is where your liquidity pool can actually grow without you doing anything to it, because depending on the rebase that's happening on a daily basis, your amount of USD Plus is going to increase inside of that said liquidity pool. Now, what happens after that is that arbitrage bots are actually rebalancing your LP position. So let's say you have a bit more USD plus in your LP or in your liquidity pool. The arbitrage bots are going to sell a bit of that USD plus in order to buy more of the Matic token or whichever other token that's paired with USD plus in order to maintain the 50% of both tokens. Now, since you are a liquidity provider, you get rewarded for providing liquidity into a liquidity pool. Now, a decentralized exchange, as we've mentioned before, charges a fixed amount for each transaction, whether or not it is a buy or sell, and some of that is going to the liquidity providers, and depending on how much of the pool you own or how much liquidity you provide to that pool, you are entitled to a portion of those swap fees. Now, as a final reward, your rebases from USD Plus, as well as the swap fees for providing liquidity on that decentralized exchange, make up all of the rewards you get for providing liquidity. Now, of course, you can provide liquidity without using USD Plus, but you are not going to be getting this number one here. You're not going to be getting the rebases from USD Plus. You would be only getting the swap fees from the decentralized exchange. So as we can see, if you're providing liquidity with USD Plus, you actually get an added benefit from the rebases that USD Plus generates on a daily basis. Now, if we go into more details about step number 4 and gauge pools, we can talk about Dystopia and Penrose, as well as Cone and Unknown. Now, on Dystopia, you can decide to stake your liquidity pool token on Dystopia, or you can also do it on Penrose, which is the aggregator to Dystopia. So here, if we type in USD Plus, you see all of the different pools that are available to you, and you can decide to provide liquidity to any of those pools if you wanted to. Now, the benefit of it is, as you see the APR column, you can see the different APRs you'd be able to get depending on the pool you decide to choose. Now, personally, I am using Penrose, and if we take a look at what I have done here, I've decided to deposit about $1,100 into this specific pool, which is USD Plus and USDC. It is a stable pool because both tokens are actually stable coins, which means that there is very little chance of me losing any money. Now, as we can see, I am generating an APR of about 11% for this pool, and we've also see that I've made about $11 for holding this. And if we click on this, we can also see the amount that it's generating me in terms of Penrose tokens and in terms of Dystopia tokens. Now, if we talk about the same thing but on Binance Smart Chain, Cone is the same as Dystopia, and then Unknown is the same as Penrose, which is the aggregator to the Cone exchange. Now, we have given you a lot of information about how USD Plus works in a liquidity pool and the benefits of providing liquidity with USD Plus. So if you have any questions up until this point, definitely go into the comment section below, leave us your question, and we'll do our best to answer it as soon as possible. But what I want to leave you guys on is why pair USD Plus with your token. If we quickly go through the steps here, as we know, we have 50% of a token in question and 50% of USD Plus. Now, again, same concept. USD Plus is a yield bearing asset. It's fully collateralized and it's also a stable coin, and it does grow throughout each day, and it also grows within that liquidity pool. So as we can see inside of this liquidity pool, the amount of USD Plus would have increased after a given time, and the amount of your tokens would stay the same. Now, what this means is that your 100 tokens are now worth 101 USD Plus, which also means that the value of your token is also increasing because of the rebates that USD Plus offers within that liquidity pool. So this is the great thing about pairing your token with USD Plus, and we have a bunch of different projects that have already gone ahead to pair their tokens with USD Plus and benefit from this forced appreciation of having their token paired with USD Plus inside of their own liquidity pool. To give a few names, we have Sphere Finance, we have Parrotly, we have Tay2, we have Rebellion, and we also have many others along the way. So with all of that being said, that is how USD Plus works inside of a liquidity pool. Definitely make sure you follow Overnight Finance on Twitter, join their Discord, leave a comment, leave a like. Remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these new educational videos. And with all of that said, stay tuned for the next video. Peace.